Hello, this is the Lord's Legion and welcome to a brand new movie review, and as you can see this is a part of the series known as The Path to Endgame, where we'll be looking back on each and every film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe up until the release of Avengers Endgame. And after just under 11 years since the MCU's inception, we have finally reached to the conclusion for the Infinity Saga. And near enough every single film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe had built up towards this very point in time. But with all of the mystery and hype surrounding Avengers Endgame, does it truly live up to all expectations and that it does conclude the MCU with a massive bang? Without further ado, let's begin with this review. Now, after the release of Avengers Infinity War, the expectations for the follow-up was at an all-time high. And what was going to happen after the events of Avengers Infinity War was pretty uncertain because it could go through a number of ways. And since the last Avengers film raised the bar incredibly high, it was very clear on my mind that Endgame had a lot to live up to. And I'm just going to be really honest, Avengers Endgame doesn't really live up to the expectations because it surpassed them and then some. Now, I truly wish I could talk about the basic details or even the plot for Avengers Endgame, but in all honesty, the entire film in of itself is a massive spoiler. So much so that pretty much every single trailer and TV spot that had been released thus far had only really shown you the first 20 minutes of the film. But without getting into specifics, you have no idea on how insane Avengers Endgame truly is. And if you thought Infinity War was crazy enough, then you are totally not prepared for what Endgame is going to do to you. Because Endgame has a ton of stakes, it's very memorable, and to top it all off, it's an incredibly emotional ride. And without spoiling anything specifically, Endgame feels like a definitive end for the MCU as we know it, perfectly wrapping up everything that was set up from Iron Man 1 all the way to Endgame. Now, in terms of the cast, they are as good as always, and in some cases even bring their A game into this film. But just so we're clear, Avengers Endgame is very centred around the original 6, as they go through a lot of changes and interesting twists. And for those who were disappointed in Infinity War over the fact that Captain America didn't have as much screen time, this is the movie for you because in Endgame, Captain America has the most to do, and he also has some of the best moments in the entire film. Plus, Endgame does perfectly wrap up both Captain America and Iron Man's story arcs in a truly satisfying fashion. And as a minor side note, if you're worrying about Captain Marvel stealing the spotlight in Endgame, she's really not in it a whole lot. Although she does have a moment or two that does make her stand out. This could be seen as either a good or bad thing, depending on if you are a huge fan of Captain Marvel or not. But if you ask me, I think they've handled her character much better in this film than they did in her own solo film. Although if there's one thing to make clear is that we don't get to see Thanos nearly as much as we did in Infinity War, but to me this isn't a bad thing because we did get enough of him in Infinity War, and unlike the last film where it was mostly his story, this movie is more of the Avengers story. And I promise you that you will not be let down by Thanos' appearance, as he is just as memorable as he was in the last one. Now, what I think Endgame does a little better than Infinity War is that I think the pacing just felt more smooth to me, due to the fact that we mostly spend time with one group as opposed to 5 different teams like in the last film. But much like with the last movie, it does keep us guessing on who is going to make it out alive as well as what could potentially happen next. And to me, every single scene in Endgame feels incredibly important as it either further develops our characters or just simply moves the plot forward. But again, without spoiling anything, Avengers Endgame is such an unpredictable movie and is no doubt the biggest in terms of scope and emotional weight. And the last act of this movie is so bizarre that you just have to witness it for yourself to believe so. And it pretty much surpasses every single action scene that has came before throughout the MCU, in terms of how massive it is, as well as the stakes and even the emotional payoff. But honestly, I feel like I'm doing this movie a massive disservice because I just can't talk about it without spoiling anything. But to me, Avengers Endgame is one of those movies that you must see as soon as possible, and trust me, it is a satisfying conclusion for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I truly mean that because this movie is very conclusive, to the point that I have no idea on where the universe will be heading in the future. And that is a smart move on their end, because at this point the future of the MCU could go pretty much anywhere. But despite of all of this, Avengers Endgame feels like a true love letter to the Marvel comics. And if you've been following the MCU since the very beginning, then this will feel like the ultimate payoff. And to me, both Avengers Infinity War as well as Avengers Endgame feel like the complete package in my eyes. And so for the final verdict for Avengers Endgame, I hate to be predictable, but I have to give it a 10 out of 10. Because honestly, I have nothing but praise for this movie, and in my eyes, it's in my top 3 MCU films for sure. And honestly, I couldn't think of a much better conclusion than Endgame. So what do you personally think of Avengers Endgame if you've already seen it already? Do you believe that it's among the greatest within the MCU, or do you much prefer Infinity War over Endgame? Comment below and share some thoughts, and as always, thank you guys for watching this video, please like and subscribe, take care and have a good one.